Hi, I'm Tupelo Kenyon, coming to you from the hills of eastern Tennessee, and today we're going to explore reverence for life through nature. A few years ago, Janie and I were walking along a deserted beach on the Pacific side of Mexico. A lone figure approached us, and as we converged, we struck up an easy conversation. She felt like an old friend. It wasn't long before we had made plans for a campfire beach dinner of local fish, rice, and fruit. It was her birthday, so we offered to provide an impromptu concert after dinner to help celebrate. It was a wonderful evening. We were accompanied by Chris, a marvelous harmonica player and percussionist from New Zealand, and Jake, an accomplished guitarist and didgeridoo player from the UK. The music that night was magical. As the evening progressed, we learned more about our fascinating birthday girl. I immediately appreciated her grasp of common sense spiritual principles and her rock-solid dedication to her inner guidance. She was wise, worldly, and otherworldly all at the same time. She was a multifaceted jewel, shining bright with a rare depth and beauty. I recognized her as a shaman of the native North Americans. We learned later her name, Spirit Walker Standing. At the end of that evening, as I was packing up my guitar, she approached me with a well-worn scrap of paper in her outstretched hand. She said, "These words came to me a couple of months ago, and I haven't known what to do with them until now. Now I know I'm supposed to give them to you." And she handed them to me. On the paper was written about a dozen words, including the phrase story belt. It made no sense to me. She explained a story belt is a tool that helps a shaman keep track of all the people in the tribe, as well as past generations. It's a tool of remembrance. Each person is represented by a colorful bead on the story belt. She is called the keeper of the bones for her people, and this is traditionally done with a story belt.
A people without history is like wind on the buffalo grass. Sioux Native American proverb.
The next day, first thing, I grabbed my guitar and a scrap of paper, and a new song simply poured out in about 15 minutes. I showed it to Janie, and after another few minutes, she had the perfect harmony vocal and a dulcimer part. We were eager and excited to show Spirit Walker Standing what her scrap of paper had grown into. So we walked to her campsite with instruments in tow. We met her about halfway. She was walking toward our camp. Janie said, "We have a new song for you." Her nonchalant reply was, "I was thinking you might." Once again, we were delighted by her uncanny timing, although by now we were no longer surprised by it. Curious coincidences are a regular occurrence around Spirit Walker Standing. As we played the song for her, she went deep into the music and into herself. As she concentrated, listening fully, I noticed her face seemed to morph until she looked completely different. She settled into a very peaceful place deep within. As the song came to an end, she surfaced just long enough to ask us to sing it again, and then again. The song obviously struck a chord with her, so I wanted to find a way to record it right then and there, right on the beach, so she could take the song with her when she left. Things kept falling into place to make it easy for us to make a good recording that night. Again, we weren't really all that surprised. Jake just happened to have a DAT recorder with him in his backpack. We had an assortment of microphones, cords, and a mixer from our stage setup. So in the spirit and tradition of Mexican ingenuity, we cobbled together a rustic recording studio right there on the beach. We recorded the song that night, complete with guitar, dulcimer, didgeridoo, harmonica, percussion, and harmony vocals. We presented Spirit Walker Standing with the digital master and a cassette copy of the new song titled Story Belt, but felt like it was we who were given the gift. We went our separate ways until a few months later, when we were able to spend a few more days together in a charming little stone village named Real de Catorce in north central Mexico. She explained how the song had been put to good use since the last time we were together. One of the many humanitarian activities Spirit Walker Standing was coordinating was a gathering of the shamans. At her request, they had come from all over North and South America for the purpose of consecrating an area of spiritual importance. They were also likely comparing and combining their wisdom for reasons beyond my current understanding. Spirit Walker Standing was hosting the proceedings and began by playing the song Story Belt 3 times in a row. She said it set the tone for the gathering. Once again, I was touched and amazed by this intriguing person, but still not surprised. Of all the awards and recognition available to singers and songwriters, this experience of Story Belt will forever remain in the most reverent and grateful place in my heart. What an honor. Spirit Walker Standing received a spark of inspiration for this song and was interested and disciplined enough to recognize its potential, write it down, and when the time came, pass it on to me. She felt something deep and powerful and important through this song, but it was I who received the most valuable gift. The birthing of this song helped me to remember the oneness we all share with all people and all things. It allowed me to reaffirm the magic and wonder of life, experienced through communing with nature. It allowed me to revisit my strong connection with the natural world and experience the awe and wonder of life and the oneness with nature. The entire experience of Story Belt reminded me that we are all one with each other and one with life, interconnected. How many of us are there? One. These bodies are hollow vessels suitable to temporarily host what is known as the Great Spirit in the Native American tradition. When we get out of the way and let it flow, miracles happen. You know, by now, several years have passed since this experience on the beach when we first met Spirit Walker Standing, and we have recorded 2 versions of the song inspired by our first meeting. The first recording is titled Blue Sky Traveler, Story Belt, from the CD entitled Celestial Sounds of Harmony and Light, Volume 1. Spirit Walker Standing handed me a scrap of paper one other time and said, "You have some beautiful instrumental music in you too, and here's the title." When I unfolded the scrap of paper, I saw only 6 words, Celestial Sounds of Harmony and Light. As of this writing, there are now 2 Celestial Sounds CDs, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Story Belt is on Volume 1, and that instrumental version will be playing in the background toward the end of this video. The version of Story Belt with Janie and I singing the lyrics ended up on our CD entitled Here Like a River. You can listen to the song and read the simple lyrics at the end of this video. You know, I wanted to tell you the story of this profound experience because I feel like it's a good introduction to the subject of reverence for life through nature. And what a setting for it, huh? Janie and I both have always loved the peaceful inspiration offered by the wilderness. We have traveled to many incredible, remote places through the years and have made our homes far from the clamor and pollution of the cities. Our sense of home is a lot like this, a peaceful place in the country, a few miles from a small village. We have insisted on this way of life since we first met in the mid-70s in Kodiak, Alaska. Since then, we have built cozy cabins and little homes in out-of-the-way places including Menasha Bay on Kodiak Island, Spruce Island, and Homer, Alaska. Also the Big Island of Hawaii, the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas, and now in the Little Bighorn Mountains of Wyoming. We like to say that we had to move to Wyoming, the least populated state, because Alaska got too crowded. When I first wrote the article that became this video, Janie and I were on the beach at the end of the road outside of the charming little fishing village of Charlottesville on the island of Tobago, a few miles northeast of South America in the Caribbean. What an amazing setting. A few days before that, we were on the island of Trinidad, where we had another incredible experience with the song Story Belt. We rented a little bungalow in a remote area a few miles down from Asia Right. It's a nature preserve there. It was an inspiring setting and we felt like singing, so we grabbed our guitar and dulcimer and settled into the funky little deck overlooking this amazing unspoiled jungle wilderness as far as you could see. After singing a couple of other songs, we sang Story Belt. It's a quiet, simple, and harmonious song that seemed to fit the environment perfectly and the moment. At the end of the song, somehow the music seemed to just continue going all by itself. We were done, but the song kept going. We realized what we were hearing was the sound of the jungle at sunset. Countless insects, birds, and other unknown critters were all singing along. And this is the part that really blew us away. The song is in the key of D. And the jungle chorus that night was exactly in D. Not close to D, but perfectly in tune with the song we had just finished singing. We enjoyed our thrill bumps and sat back to let the magic of the moment sink in deep. Through the years, we've found that wild, unspoiled places like this nurture creativity and make it easier to stay in touch with the things that really matter.
Hills are always more beautiful than stone buildings, you know. Living in a city is an artificial existence. Lots of people hardly ever feel real soil under their feet, see plants grow except in flower pots, or get far enough beyond the streetlights to catch the enchantment of a night sky studded with stars. When people live far from the scenes of the Great Spirit's making, it's easy for them to forget his laws. Walking buffalo, Taitanga Mani, Stony Indian.
Even when surrounded by these serene scenes of the Great Spirit's making, it's all too apparent to see evidence of man's short-sightedness. It seems as if many of today's world leaders and corporate CEOs treat the earth and her natural resources as if this is the last generation who will ever need them.
In our way of life, in our government, with every decision we make, we always keep in mind the seventh generation to come. It's our job to see that the people coming ahead, the generations still unborn, have a world no worse than ours, and hopefully better. When we walk upon Mother Earth, we always plant our feet carefully, because we know the faces of our future generations are looking up at us from beneath the ground. We never forget them. Oren Lyons, the Onondaga Faith Keeper.
I wonder how long we can keep behaving as if future generations don't matter before harming the planet irreparably. For instance, during our trip to Trinidad and Tobago, we were able to visit some very remote beaches, rarely visited by humans. Still, human trash preceded us to these otherwise pristine jewels of nature. The same scene of careless litter has met us on the beaches of Mexico, Belize, Honduras, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Hawaii, and even Alaska. While in Tobago, we spent a couple of days with new friends Dan and Sandra, who have been circumnavigating the planet in their sailboat Mariposa for the last 15 years. They reported seeing disheartening heaps of human garbage accumulating in the most remote places on Earth, including isolated atolls hundreds of miles from human habitation. We heard the same sad stories about runaway litter from our friends Kim and Luis and Bob and Lisa, who had also spent many years visiting remote places during their full-time sailing lifestyles. Our litter bug mentality is no longer threatening just where we live. Our garbage is literally filling the far-flung corners of the earth.
We do not inherit the land. We borrow it from our children. Native American proverb.
Here's one quick example of blatant short-sightedness that left us thirsty for a better idea. Let's say one person is thirsty at a particular hour, on a particular day, at a particular place. He buys a plastic bottle filled with water. It takes about 1 minute for that person to quench that thirst, and the bottle is tossed away and quickly forgotten. Eventually, it ends up in one of the world's oceans, rolling on the waves for a few years and then coming to rest on a beach far away, decorating it with a 21st century motif for thousands of years. Multiply that scenario by billions of people, each thirsty again and again throughout their days, throughout their years, throughout their lives, and the number of plastic bottles used once and then discarded to litter the planet is beyond comprehension. Is that really the best we can do? Doesn't anyone have a better idea? Aren't we smarter than that? How many years of this will it take for our beaches to be a foot deep in plastic bottles? 3 feet deep? Will we find a better idea then? How about this? Invent a new kind of plastic or some other material that doesn't last forever. As long as the bottle is full of water, the bottle is impervious. As soon as the bottle is opened and air comes into contact with the inside of the bottle, a chemical reaction takes place and the bottle begins to break down in a reasonable amount of time, a year or two. I'm no chemist, but something like this should be possible. Consider it a challenge. Here's a multi-million-dollar idea. Somebody needs to come up with a better idea than millions of discarded plastic water bottles lasting for centuries.
Enjoy present pleasures in such a way as not to injure future ones. Red Jacket, Seneca Native American.
Let's explore the idea of sharing the planet. It's not all about us humans, although many of us like to think it is. Other creatures, great and small, are also manifestations of the Great Spirit, and they are also paying dearly for our carelessness with their very lives. We recently witnessed the ancient magic of a 700-pound leatherback turtle laboring up the beach to dig her nest, lay her eggs, camouflage the nest, and then return to the sea. These majestic creatures have a lifespan as long or longer than humans, but just one plastic bag can cut their life short. They feed on jellyfish and easily mistake our litter for lunch. It just takes one careless, discarded plastic bag to end the life of one of these magnificent, endangered reptiles who have flourished on this planet for eons before man showed up. And now, there are millions of plastic bags floating in our oceans. Is our consumable, throwaway society more important to us than the creatures we share the planet with? How many more species have to become extinct before we become more responsible? Do we really understand that extinct means forever?
To honor and respect means to think of the land and the water and plants and animals who live here as having a right equal to our own to be here. We are not the supreme and all-knowing beings living at the top of the pinnacle of evolution, but in fact, we are members of the sacred hoop of life, along with the trees and rocks, the coyotes and the eagles and fish and toads that each fulfills its purpose. They each perform their given task in the sacred hoop, and we have one too. Wolf Song of the Abenaki tribe.
What is our part, our responsibility, our purpose in the sacred hoop of life? That purpose is unique to each one of us who cares enough to ask the question and look inside deeply enough to discover it. Our race appears to be on an important crossroads right now in our lifetime. We have the opportunity to choose like never before in human history. We have the opportunity for education. We can learn. We can know more than ever before thanks to this rapidly growing age of information. But we must remember that all knowledge doesn't come from books. The quiet and peaceful places in nature can teach us important life lessons and help us, put us in touch with our true selves, not the selves that are the shallow byproducts of current societies and cultures, but the deep, everlasting self, who we have in common and share in spite of the shortcomings of whatever culture we happen to be born into.
Oh yes, I went to the white man's schools. I learned to read from school books, newspapers, and the Bible. But in time, I found that these were not enough. Civilized people depend too much on man-made printed pages. I turned to the Great Spirit's book, which is the whole of creation. You can read a big part of that book if you study nature. You know, if you take all your books, lay them out under the sun, and let the snow and rain and insects work on them for a while, there will be nothing left. But the Great Spirit has provided you and me with an opportunity to study in nature's university, the forest, the rivers, the mountains, and the animals, which includes us. Walking Buffalo, Tatangamani, Stony Indian.
I feel that my life has been greatly enriched by the opportunity to study in the School of Nature. It's also a constant reminder of the abundance available to all of us. Just look around at the diversity and tenacity of life as expressed through nature. What we see out there is not something separate from ourselves that operates with an entirely different set of rules. It's all part of one thing, one reality, one nature. And we are very much a part of that oneness. I sincerely hope that awareness of the divinity of nature will continue to grow and people will once again revere and honor Mother Earth, just as our wise native ancestors have for thousands of years.
The Indian loved to worship. From birth to death, he revered his surroundings. He considered himself born in the luxurious lap of Mother Earth, and no place to him was humble. There was nothing between him and the Big Holy. The contact was immediate and personal, and the blessings of Wakantanka flowed over the Indian like rain showered from the sky. Luther Standing Bear, Ogallala Sioux Chief.
Wakantanka is simply another word for God, the Great Spirit. The word may be new, but the idea of spirit flowing over us like rain showered from the sky is a universal understanding expressed by people all over the world. We can learn these things from our ancestors. The knowledge plus our personal experience gradually grows wisdom. Wisdom reveals how best to use the knowledge we learn. Book learning has its place, but is shallow. Politics, philosophies, and even religions tear us apart more often than bringing us together. It's up to individuals like us to get beyond the words, get beyond the dogma, get beyond the minds of careless men with their short-sighted agendas, and experience the oneness we share on this tiny blue ball, forever streaking through endless space. Each one of us comes to the planet alone, and we leave alone. We are each day only a bead in the story belt of life. That is the outer appearance. But beyond appearances, we all share something profound. We share this incredible place we call home and take for granted, planet Earth. And we share this sense of aliveness, this awareness of I am. You know, we as a people are diverse, but through the greatest enigma of all time, we are also one. Here's hoping, as a race of people, we continue waking up to that fact and then behave toward one another and our planet accordingly. Here's hoping we learn to act as if the Great Spirit in all things really matters.
Grandfather, look at our brokenness. We know that in all creation, only the human family has strayed from the sacred way. We know that we are the ones who are divided, and we are the ones who must come back together to walk in the sacred way. Grandfather, Sacred One, teach us love, compassion, honor, that we may heal the earth and heal each other. Ojibwe prayer.
And here's hoping we learn to act as if good planets are hard to find before it's too late. I'm Tupelo Kenyon. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to celebrate life.
just as it has always been, and I'll only be a beating story, a beating story, better to mine. And I am a beating story, a beating story, better to mine. A reed in the river for water to flow through. A hollow reed, it's just as it has always been, and I'll be a reed in the river, a reed in the river of life and mine. And I am a song that's singing me, the song of the people. It's just as it has always been, and I'm only a song, the song of the people, the song of the people singing me. Just as it has always been, and